The other thing that's really important is Google's new emphasis on personal firsthand experience. Google is trying to train its algorithm to actually detect what content has been written in firsthand experience, because I, in Michigan, can sit here and say, write a blog post about such and such wedding venue that I've never been to. And all it's going to do is go research what's online. What Google wants to see is actually that this was written by someone who's physically been to that place and had firsthand experience. And so it's really powerful as a wedding vendor if you can say, I love this venue because reason 1, 2, and 3. And I want you to all think about using those phrases that would indicate to the reader and to Google that you do have firsthand experience.
Hey there, CEOs. Welcome to the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. I'm your host, Brandee Gaar, and my mission is to help you, the wedding industry entrepreneur, to build a profitable wedding business that you've always dreamed of. On today's show, we have a juicy topic, and I know that you guys are excited about this one because I get so many DMs asking me about how to use AI effectively in your wedding business. And so I brought on my good friend and SEO expert, Sarah Dunn from Sarah Does SEO, and we are breaking down not only how you can use AI effectively in your business to make you more efficient and to write better copy for your business, blog posts, social media posts, TikToks, all the things. But we're also talking about the do's and don'ts of how to use SEO effectively in your business and to make sure you're not being caught in Google jail. You guys, if you've wondered how you can use AI, what the buzz is all about, if it can actually help you in your business, this is an episode that you do not want to miss. So I cannot wait for you to hear from my friend Sarah Dunn from Sarah Does SEO. You guys, I have such an awesome treat today because my friend Sarah Dunn from Sarah Does SEO has graciously agreed to join me to talk all about AI, how to use it, how to not use it, what you should definitely not be doing, and really how to use it to level up your business. So, Sarah, thanks for being here.
Of course, I was so thrilled when you responded to one of my email newsletters and you were like, this is a podcast topic. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. So this is one of the first times I've actually been on a podcast talking about AI. So I'm excited to dig in with you and hear how you're using it too.
Yes. And I'm positive this won't be the last time you talk about AI because it is all anyone is talking about, I feel like right now. I get so many DMs. Do you know what AI is? How should I be using it in my business? How should I use it for social media? And to be honest, I am still learning so much about it too. So when I saw your newsletter, I was like, oh girl, this is a juicy topic. If you're listening and you're not really sure what AI is, AI, artificial intelligence, it's developing so quickly that I think we're all just trying to figure out what it can do and what its capabilities are. And something that I found out early on was how not to use it. And I figured it out the hard way. That's what Sarah and I are going to be talking all about today. But Sarah, really quick, can you tell everybody a little bit more about you? Because if there's somebody listening that doesn't know the Sarah Dunn yet, I'd love them to know a little bit about who you are.
Of course. So I am a wedding SEO specialist. So essentially, I help wedding businesses show up on search engines when their ideal clients are searching for exactly what they do and what they offer. So a lot of my work has to do with creating content, updating websites, appealing to people who are looking for information. And all of those things are really impacted by AI, whether search engines are bringing AI into the search experience or people are using AI to actually create things that we post on our websites. It's all definitely very interconnected. And I actually used to call myself the geeky best friend to wedding professionals, which I think really applies here because I've definitely geeked out on AI. And so this feels like a great fit.
So tell me a little bit about how you use this. Have you been playing with it? What was your first kind of interaction with it? Tell me just your experience so far.
So my first interaction with AI was actually, I was at the Wedding Pro event last year and I talked to Taylor Cusick Holman. So all credit to Taylor. She started talking about Jasper, which was an AI tool she was playing around with. I had never heard about AI writing tools at the time. You just put some information into this computer program and you ask it to write things for you. You give it prompts in order to have it generate more information and more text. And you can use it to write anything. And I really couldn't wrap my mind around it. I remember being like, okay, Taylor, whatever, like that sounds really creepy, actually. Thank you, but I am out. And
Right.
I went home and I was like, I might as well look this thing up. So I did do a free trial of Jasper. It wrote some really boring blog content that I never used. And I ended up quitting my trial and not moving forward with it. But that was really my first foray into the AI world. But
Okay.
I really got a lot more interested, I think, as we all did when ChatGPT came out.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's the tool that you use, but I think that's the one that really blew everyone's mind as far as generative AI. And so I think that's what we should talk about and explain a little bit more, that AI has existed for a long time, these kind of tools that assist us and try to use information and patterns from the past in order to predict what we're looking for in the future. So, actually, things like Siri suggestions, when you're typing something and it suggests what word you want to use, and then you're able to just fill it in, that's actually an AI tool using patterns from the past saying, you're probably trying to say this. Even, when you're using a voice memo on an iPhone and it's trying to understand what you just said with your voice, it's using AI technology and patterns to figure out what you probably meant. We've all experienced this, but ChatGPT and generative AI really took things to the next level. And for anyone who's never used these tools, these are tools that have been trained in words and all sorts of things, words, math problems, just thousands and millions and zillions of things have been fed into a machine to teach it what we as humans are usually looking for and to create. And the way that ChatGPT can take a prompt that's very simple or very complex and actually understand what you're asking for and then generate more than you have even put into it, I think that is the really crazy part. So that's my long answer to like, how are you using it? I'm now
Yeah.
using ChatGPT mostly, and I'm mostly using it for idea generation, basic content creation, but I'm being very, very careful.
Which is what we're going to talk about today. And ChatGPT is also the tool that I use. And if any of you are listening to this and you're like, yeah, I've heard rumblings about it, but I still don't really, I've never even opened it, you can go over to chat.openai.com and start playing with it. You need to create an account, but it's completely free, at least for now. I don't know how long that'll last because it's really an amazing tool, but you can start giving it prompts. And what I think has been really interesting is you can tell it what tone to write in too. So you can say things like write in a casual, friendly tone or write in a formal tone. Or I've actually just recently started trying write in Brandee Gaar's tone because I
What?
have so much content on the internet. Yeah. And it really is quite accurate. I'm not going to lie. Like it uses some of the same words that I use often. So I thought that that was really strange, exciting
Yes,
and scary.
for
I'm
sure.
not
For
sure
sure.
what adjectives I want to use there, but I do use it quite a bit, but I still give it very simple commands. Like I'll say, write a podcast outline for this topic, or what is something that wedding business owners are searching for now. And so it'll spit some things out. It'll help me write an outline for a podcast. I use it for that a lot, which is super helpful, I think, because I know what I want to say, but I'm still trying to formulate it. So then I'll go throw it in ChatGPT. It'll give me an outline, and I might use 3 of the 5 things that it says, but it gets the creative juices flowing. And I found that to be really, really helpful. And I would think that that would be
Yes.
similar to blogs, right? Sarah, have you used it for blogging?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's a really good way to use the AI to actually inspire you to be creative and get you past that moment where you're having to start something with a blank screen. It's so much
Yes.
easier in so many cases to have something to work from instead of sitting down and going, okay, I have to write a real wedding blog today about this wedding. What do I even want to say? You can actually feed into ChatGPT some basic details about a wedding that maybe
Okay.
aren't formed thoughts or like really beautiful ways to state something, but you
Mhm.
can actually feed into the tool some basic facts about a wedding. So you could say, write a blog post about Pat and Susan's wedding. The colors were these colors. It was at this venue. These were the other vendors. They had the ceremony here. And then give it a few more details about something memorable or something interesting, and then
Yeah.
see what the tool comes up with for you. And certainly it's not going to be amazing, but it's going to give you something that feels more like a story and more fully formed than just the
Mhm.
basic thoughts that you wrote down. And then you can take it and edit it, maybe add in some more story and details from the day. And you're not
Mhm.
starting with that blank screen. So that's one of my
Mm.
favorite things to think about with an AI writing tool. Not that it's doing the job for you, but it's helping you get started.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so good. As you just said that, and this may somewhat be off topic because I don't know if either one of us are going to know this answer, but I wonder if it could write a timeline for a wedding. I,
I
I,
wonder if
I
it'd be
think
any good. That's what
I
I would worry
know, I
about.
know. I think somebody listening to this needs to report back. You guys need to go throw it in there and see if it'll write you anywhere near a correct timeline. I do think that so much more is coming from it right now. And Sarah, I'd love to know your thoughts. For wedding pros, I could see it being super useful for blogging. Obviously, we've talked about that. Social media captions.
I wanted to ask you about that
Yeah.
actually. So I was playing around with ChatGPT this morning, just preparing for this conversation, trying to
Yeah.
brainstorm what are some things I haven't done or haven't thought of. And I was like, you know what? I have, and all my clients have all of these great blog posts on their websites already. They've put the
Hmm.
effort in, whether it was maybe a year ago or a few months ago. I wonder if we could put a full blog post into ChatGPT and ask it to write Instagram captions related to it. And it did it. I did it as an example. I mean, the captions were a little bit generic, but I'm curious what you think as like more of our social media strategists. Do you love that idea or hate that idea?
I personally love it. And here's why because we always talk about having anchor content, right? I think as wedding pros, just as business owners in general, we overthink how much content we have to create. And in reality, you could create one piece of content, which could be your blog, and then you can write all your social media captions and all like Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all of it can come from that one blog post. There's no reason that you have to keep recreating, right? So I love it also because your blog post hopefully will already be written in your own voice and it's your own unique thoughts. So while you may have used Chat GPT to get you started on that blog post, hopefully you put some of your own thoughts into it, like your own unique thoughts. And so taking the blog, copying it, pasting it in Chat GPT and say, write 5 social media captions with a strong call to action to go read the blog from
Ooh,
this blog, right?
yes,
The whole point of
yes.
social media is to create that funnel, right? To have people go to your website. This one I haven't done is to add create a strong call to action to book a consult, but you could tell it what you want it to do, right? I do
And
think that
it's
the
free
social
to
media
try. You might as well try a prompt and see what happens. Totally. Can
right.
I read out loud the prompt that I ended
Yeah.
up putting in with
Mhm.
the real wedding blog post that I thought got me the best caption?
Okay.
Here's what I wrote as the prompt that went along
Okay.
with the blog post. So at the very top of Chat GPT, I wrote, write 5 Instagram captions around 70 words each based on the blog texts below. Write them from
Okay.
the perspective of the wedding photographer. Make the captions positive and use words the photographer would say in casual conversation. And then I took the text of the whole blog post, I put it in quotes. I don't know if that helped the chatbot or not, but I was like, I think that would help it understand that this was the blog post text. So I pasted 1,000 words below and basically was like, go. And
Okay.
it did a pretty good job. I ended up with 5 Instagram caption. I thought they were doing a little bit too much to try to cover the whole day in 70 words. So I actually
Okay.
gave it a follow up prompt. And I said, rewrite these and focus on one element of the wedding day at a time.
Mm.
And so it's important to think about the way that you can actually interact with ChatGPT and make it kind of a conversation where it's referencing what it's done already. You can ask it to improve it. You can ask it to write it in slightly different tone if it's not hitting quite the right tone. So I got some captions back after I asked it to focus on one element of the day at a time. Then I
Okay.
had a caption that was about just the reception, the vibe at the reception, where it was located, mentioned a couple of the vendors that were there. And I could then imagine making an Instagram post with several photos from that wedding that someone could swipe through. Don't forget that you can have it improve or slightly tweak something that it's already done. What it gives you is not its final answer.
That's a great tip because so often I'll sometimes have it rewrite it 3 or 4 times because it'll give me one and I'm like, that's not quite it." But then you can refine that prompt like, "Okay, this was good, but rewrite it in this tone." Or I love what you just said, think about only one piece of the day at a time because it doesn't know what you're wanting in the beginning. So, can you read us 1 or 2 of the captions that you got from it?
Yes. Um, let's see. Okay. The Derby Court at the Columbus Museum of Art provided a breathtaking setting for Sam and Max's ceremony. The sun poured in through the glass ceiling, casting a magical glow on the ceremony. As a photographer, I'm in love with the contemporary architecture and elegant ambiance this venue offers. It definitely listened to when I asked it to write in a certain perspective. I didn't think that was bad. What do you think?
I didn't think it was bad either. I think if nothing else, it gave you something to start with, right? And so you might tweak a few words, which I think you should do. And then I would add a call to action, right? To see more from this beautiful venue or to see more about this beautiful sunset, whatever, the lighting in this incredible venue. Click through the blog to see more images of Max and Sally's big day. And so I do think you could even have it add those calls to action after you get them, right? Add a call to action to each of these to go read the blog. I think it's brilliant. I just think it's such a helpful tool. We talked about blog, and like you said, Sarah, so you can go in, tell it to write a blog. That can be your first prompt, right? You get the blog right. Then you take that blog and then you tell it to write 5 social media captions, right? And then what about website copy? So I actually did this one. I did it for my coaching business, not for Blush. I wanted to see how it would do. I told it to write a sales page for the Wedding Pro CEO Summit 2024. I was like, we already have a sales page written, so I want to see what it would update, right? Plus, we have quite a bit of content about the summit out. So I was like, I really didn't tell it anything about the summit. I just said, write a sales page with a strong call to action in an empowering tone about the Wedding Pro CEO Summit 2024. And it actually, I thought, did a phenomenal job. I was shocked. I was like, it was long. It had really strong calls to action. I would say, obviously, I'm not going to go copy and paste the whole thing, but I really thought there were some great excerpts from it that I was like, wow, that makes me want to go for sure. And so
This
I
chatbot
was
just sold me on the
it
summit.
did. I'm like, yes, I'm totally going to the summit 2024. But I thought that was really interesting. What would you think about it writing copy for a wedding pro for their website?
I think that is tricky. I think you have to be really careful. 2 things. First of all, I've noticed that what ChatGPT writes a lot of times in the wedding industry is like super flowery and like way over the top. Some of these
Yes.
captions, let me tell you, Max's reaction when he saw his bride walking down the aisle was priceless. I'm like reading this from what it wrote
Right.
in one of these captions. Like it's so cheesy to the maximum. And I think it's because so many wedding websites are super cheesy. And so
Yes.
essentially it's learned this is the tone of the industry. So I think when it's writing for a website, it's going to make you sound like everyone else. And so you
Yeah.
have to be really careful to pull what it creates and definitely think about how would I actually say the same thing out loud? I think
Mhm.
that's the best way to always think about copy. Like, I would never say that sentence out loud, but what would I say if I was trying to convey essentially the same thing and was
Yeah.
telling a friend or a potential client? So again, if it's writing copy for a website, you don't want it to sound like everyone else. And that's exactly what it's been trained to do. So
Yeah.
make sure you're editing. The other thing to think about is that we want to make sure for SEO purposes that we're not just taking an entire page, like hundreds and hundreds of words, and just copying it off ChatGPT and putting it on our website, putting it on a
Yeah.
page or putting it in a blog post. And the reason for that is we do at some level want to avoid AI detection on our websites. Now, Google has said publicly that they don't actually care who writes content for the internet as long as it's helpful for the end user. And in that, they meant we don't care if it's human written or AI written. Most of us in the industry think that they're still going to try to prioritize human written content.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if there's any way that these things can actually be detected, we want to change it enough in our human voice to actually see if we can get it past AI detection. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I don't want anybody to just be like, oh, okay, this was perfect. Boom, job done. It's on my website. I'm moving on. Brandee says I need stuff on my website. I've checked that box. Everything is grand. So I want to highly, highly encourage any wedding pro or business owner using an AI writing tool to edit what it comes up with. And I would
Mm-hmm.
never, ever recommend just putting in a prompt that's like, write me a 1,000 word blog post about X topic.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a good idea. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
going to be boring. It's probably not going to help you rank on Google. And so it's not something that needs to be on your website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree. And this is a perfect lead in to like, okay, Sarah, let's talk about a few of the do's and a few of the don'ts of using these AI tools, because we've talked about how we both use them really effectively in our businesses. I would say I use it daily in our business, really, usually when I'm just like, I wonder what it would say about this. Am I thinking the right thing? But I do really love it. Just really quick, when you were talking about not asking it to write 1,000 words on this topic, I love that you said that. I would think, I always encourage wedding pros to write evergreen content, at least have a handful of just really juicy evergreen blogs on your website that you can use in all the places. But I could definitely see you saying something like, what are the top 5 bridesmaids photos you should get at your wedding, and see what it says, and then see if you agree. It could get your creative juices flowing, but not write me a 1,000-word blog on the 5 bridesmaids
No.
photos you should get at your wedding, because you really want it to be written in your tone. So Sarah, I really want to talk about these do's and don'ts, and you really touched on the AI detection, right? And like you said, Google has said that they don't necessarily care as long as it's helpful. But it's been really interesting to us. Ira loves tech as well, my husband, and we've played with some of these AI detection. And it's really interesting to me how little you can change to make it not AI detected, which is kind of shocking to me. But if we were to go into ChatGPT, tell it to write show notes for a blog or show notes for a podcast, and then we put that into the detection, it came up as 99.9%. It's AI. And we could go in and change a handful of words and it would come back as human. Have it write it so you're not starting from a blank screen. But really, guys, like, put your thoughts into it. You're the expert. You're the one with the experience, the lived experience. You should be having your own unique thoughts that you put in here, right?
Yes. Yes. And I want to add to that adding your own unique thoughts and experience is actually going to help your content rank better on Google.
Mm,
So
okay.
here's what Google is doing to combat the millions of new pieces of content that are now AI generated that are being posted on the internet.
Yeah.
Is that they are training their algorithm to prefer content that is unique and based on unique experience. And so
Mm,
essentially, if you're just putting something into ChatGPT, it only knows what's already been written. And it's just kind of rehashing and rewriting that in different ways. And Google knows that. So if you put that on your website, it's like there's nothing original or unique here. So
yeah.
it's so important to use your expertise and actually put it into the content to say something that maybe hasn't been said before, or give
Hmm.
an actual opinion to the piece of content you're writing. The other thing that's really important is Google's new emphasis on personal firsthand experience. So Google is trying to train its algorithm to actually detect what content has been written in firsthand experience. Because I, in Michigan, can sit here and say, write a blog post about such and such wedding venue that I've never been to. And all it's going to do is go research what's online. What Google wants to see is actually that this was written by someone who's physically been to that place and had firsthand experience. And so it's really powerful as a wedding vendor if you can say, I love this venue because reason 1, 2, and 3. I love the getting ready location. It has beautiful light and it's super convenient to the ceremony spot where you can walk through and no one will even see you on your way to the ceremony. That's probably not written anywhere online. And I want you to all think about using those phrases that would indicate to the reader and to Google that you do have firsthand experience. So, can you say, I have photographed more than 10 weddings at this venue, or I have worked here 20 times in the past, and here's some of my advice based on that experience. That's a really direct way to say, like, I've actually been here, and that is why I'm writing this blog post. So, how can you prove your own personal perspective as the author of that piece? Those are the things that Google's going to be looking for more in the future. And when you think about it, it also makes your content a lot more interesting to the real human reader. So those are a couple of my do's. Yes, change things up, but also put in something unique and special based on your experience that other people don't know.
That's so good. Yeah. And honestly, we talk about all the time. People buy from people, they buy from real humans, they buy from storytelling. I mean, just throwing a bunch of educational content out there without any kind of story or lived experience behind it is boring, to be honest. So we really want to bring in that lived experience and pose yourself as the expert that these couples that are searching for need for their wedding. Okay, so I want to recap our do's and then end with two of our don'ts because they're good. Okay, so do consider using AIs for ideas, brainstorming, asking about common questions, and for outlining your thoughts. I think that was a really good one. Do use it to write introductions and conclusions. That's brilliant. Honestly, Sarah, we didn't touch on that much, but I think the conclusion of a blog is by far the hardest thing to write.
It's so hard. You can write all sorts of things about the day and like how it's happening, or you can write all sorts of advice, but then it's, oh, how do I finish this? Like, how do I wrap this up? Or even like, how do I start this in a way that's interesting to get people to the advice or the actual wedding? So I love ChatGPT for writing an introduction and or a conclusion, and then you human writing everything in the middle.
So good, especially for real weddings, because the human writing is easy for like, these were the details we loved, or here's what it was like planning with Matt and Sally. That's great. But then you're right, that introduction, that conclusion, really great tip on how to use AI. And then the last one is do consider it to write more content based on what you wrote yourself. So we talked about that a little bit. Create Instagram captions from a blog post you've already written. And one we didn't touch on, but you could also ask it to write you a content calendar, give you the ideas on what to post, or create 3 TikTok ideas from this blog post. I haven't done that one yet, but as we were talking, I was like, oh, I wonder what it would spit out. Would it spit out links to other TikToks that you can use as inspiration? I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating. Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity people haven't tapped into.
Yeah.
We all want to use ChatGPT to write more for us. Well, how about taking something you've already written that's super long and ask ChatGPT to write more stuff from that? Something else that comes to mind is like a YouTube video script. Take this blog post and write a script for a YouTube video that I could record. Yeah. So all of these different platforms you want to be on, how can you get ChatGPT to make that so much easier for you based on the work you've already done?
So good, because every platform is different. Okay, so those are our 3 big do's, and we have 2 don'ts. One we touched on, and one I want to make sure that we catch before we get off for this podcast. So don't number 1 is don't tell AI to write a blog for you and copy and paste it. We covered that, I think. Just do not do that. Put your own tone on it. The next one is don't assume the information that AI writes is actually accurate. And we cannot leave this podcast without touching on this.
No.
Sarah,
Okay.
tell us more.
So there's actually a disclaimer on ChatGPT now at the very bottom that says ChatGPT may produce inaccurate information about people, places, or facts. Inaccurate facts. So here's a problem. I decided that I wanted to see how good ChatGPT would be writing about something that exists in the real world. So
Okay.
I went to ChatGPT this morning and I said, write me an 800-word blog post about weddings at the Columbus Museum of Art. Included accurate information about the cost, the venues, and what's included. And I was like, go to the internet and find it for me.
Okay.
What it wrote sounds really good. Sounds super professional. It put it in sections where it explains each of the event spaces at that venue. So I take a look at it and I open the venue's own website and I realize there are multiple spaces at this venue where it misquoted the capacity. It says that the Derby Court can accommodate up to 300 guests. Not on the website. The website says 130. So that's
What?
wildly inaccurate. I don't know where it came up with it, but it is presenting it like it's a fact. And if you just
Yeah.
copied and pasted that onto your website, you would look like you have no idea what you're doing. Here's another one. It said the Derby Court was a splendid outdoor venue. The Derby Court is inside. It is an inside
No.
glass atrium. I have no idea why it came up with the idea that it is an outdoor space. But again, for anyone who actually knows this venue, you would look like an idiot. And you're trying to write a blog post like you know what you're talking about. So you have to be so careful not to take what AI writes, any of these tools, and assume that it's right. But it will present it to you as if it is a fact. And so you must double check and fact check everything it creates if it includes things like facts like this, because it's just trying to give you an output and a result. And there's no sources cited in this. I don't know where it got this information. And much of it is factually wrong.
That's so interesting. But there's so much junk on the internet. Even, I think, isn't Wikipedia a great example of that as well? Because it's like user generated. So who even knows where it's pulling this information from? But it makes sense.
At least Wikipedia, you have to cite a source in order to
true.
do an update on Wikipedia. So it used to be much worse, but now Wikipedia, if you as a user go and edit something, you actually have to cite a source. There's no requirement that AI actually cites where it got the information. And there's a lot of problems with what AI experts called hallucinations. So basically, AI making things up. This is not just limited to facts about places that exist. It's all sorts of things because the model is just trying to generate content for you. And it's not always, who knows where it actually all comes from.
Wow, hallucinations. I haven't heard that one yet, but that makes it even scarier. There's so much of what AI is doing that makes me so excited because it is such a helpful tool. And then I think 5 years in the future and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this thing going to be doing? What is it going to be making up? Are we even going to have any idea what is true and false anymore? Because it does spit it out as fact. And so you take it as fact, right? You think, oh, great. Thanks for that information, Chat GPT. I really wanted to make sure that we touch on that one, but that was such a great example of how it can be incorrect and why you do not, as a wedding pro, want to start making content about, let's say, a venue you want to work in Hawaii because you want to work there. So you start making all this content based on Chat GPT that's completely false and inaccurate. You really want to have those lived experiences in your content.
Yes. And write about what you know.
Right. Yes. Write about what you know. You guys. Yes, please. There's so much more to come from ChatGPT. And I feel like, Sarah, we're recording this episode like 3 weeks before it's going to go live. I feel like who even knows what's going to change in the next 3 weeks before it goes on, right? So we may have to do a little follow up, but this was so fun to just get to understand a little bit more about how you can use it as a wedding pro, how it can be really, really helpful, but also really how to use it wisely to to make you look like more of an expert and not in a way that's going to harm your business. Sarah, tell everybody where they can connect with you and learn more about you. Because I don't think this is the last you're going to talk about this.
No, I'll definitely keep talking about AI, and AI has my stamp of approval. What I want every business owner to know is creating content for SEO just got easier. So now's the time to really jump in and do it. Of course, not just asking ChatGPT to do your job, but to make it easier for you to market your business and to create great, helpful content on your website. For anyone who wants to learn more about SEO, the best place to do it is my monthly SEO Lunch and Learn. These are monthly free 30-minute sessions where I cover something small and actionable about SEO just for the wedding industry. So I would love if anybody would like to join me for more information and to learn a little bit at a time. The Lunch and Learn is the place to do it.
That's awesome. And where can they find information about that? On your Instagram, is that the best place to follow?
So the page on my site is sarahdoesseo.com/learn. I promote them every single month. So you can follow me at sarahdoesseo, and you will definitely get the information about those when they come out.
That is so good. You guys, if you're not already following Sarah, I'm telling you, run, don't walk to her Lunch and Learns and to her Instagram. She's always full of so much incredible content. And I, for one, am incredibly shocked. I've seen it firsthand with my own businesses, but also with a lot of my students' businesses, that one or two tiny tweaks to your SEO can make a drastic difference to how you're ranking and how you're coming up in search. So make sure that you're following her and drop into her DMs and tell her that you heard her on the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. Say hi, and thanks for being here. Sarah, thank you so much for coming. This was awesome.
Of course. Thanks for geeking out with me, Brandee.